Welcome, everybody, to our annual Strategic Planning Town Hall. I am Alex Sternfeld Dunn. I'm the Faculty Senate President and Director of the School of Music, joined by some very special guests today to lead you through all of the updates and things that have taken place in the last academic year, 2019-20, in regards to strategic planning, academic priorities, et cetera, et cetera. So today I am joined by Rick Muma, Provost of the University, Jeremy Hill, Director for the Center for Economic Development and Business Research, Kay Monk Morgan, Associate Vice President of Strategic Planning, Community Development, and 1,000 other things we don't even know about. And last but not least is President Jay Golden, President of the University, Wichita State University. So we have a fun-filled afternoon for you all to give you lots of updates, but I will turn it over for a little welcome from President Jay Golden.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm pleased to be here today, and I just wanted to take this time to thank all of the university for coming together over the last couple of years as part of a deep-held belief in shared governance at Wichita State University, something that we want to continue and will continue. For all of you to come together and put forward what are our strategic plans and priorities. I know it took a lot of work, a lot of effort. I was pleased to have the opportunity as the new president to be able to provide some additional insights and efforts that I would like to see this institution move forward on. I really like the work product. The vision, the mission, the strategic goals is wonderful. Certainly, I spend a lot of time each week going around the community, around the state, and as time will permit, post-COVID, around the country, talking up our wonderful institution, especially this being our 125th anniversary. And it really comes down to three, what I call pillars under the strategic priorities that have been developed. Number one is an accessible, affordable, and of course, impactful education for our students. Number two, as Wichita State University is really moving forward economic development, we need a strong economy so that we can overcome many of the disparities that we face as a society and as a region. And we are certainly, as Wichita State University, looked upon and depended upon to help move the needle. And we're doing that through many different forms, such as convergent sciences and the adoption that all scholarship is important across our university. And lastly, being a mission-driven university as a public and being the Kansas public, urban-based public research institution is very important. And by mission-based, again, we're looking at how we take our research, our scholarship, and our energy to address things like health, education, and economic disparities. And so I'm glad to see those things weaving throughout and prioritized in our strategic priorities. I want to thank Kay, and I want to thank, again, everybody across this campus for your work. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, President Golden. We were in these last couple of years have been an interesting transition for strategic planning as we were sort of shifting presidents, but along the way we did have a provost sort of keeping us steady. So I'd like to turn it over to Rick Muma for a couple of opening comments as well.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you all for being here today, and thank you to Kay Monk Morgan for giving me some time to make a few comments, and another thank you to Kay Monk Morgan and all the faculty and staff and students who have participated in the strategic planning process to help move our organization forward. I'd just like to point out a few things and how far we've come since we adopted WSU's first ever plan back in 2013. And now, fast forward 7 years, and after spending the past 2 to 3 years reviewing our progress and making modifications to our goals and adding a little tweak to our vision statement, I think we're in a really good place to move to the next level. One of the things that has helped us over the last 3 years is to set annual priorities and to make sure we continue to move forward. Otherwise, the strategic plan is just a document on the shelf. And this has helped us make gains in enrollment, student success, research, and workforce development. And it's important that we do that each year, and President Golden will continue this practice. Finally, I'd just like to say, and many of you who know me well and have worked with me know that I'm a true believer in planning in my blood. What I know as a public health practitioner, it's what I do. It works, and it helps make sure we're all rowing the boat in the same direction. We assess the needs, we develop plans to address those needs, we implement it, we measure our outcomes, and we evaluate to see if improvements are needed. That's what we've been doing for the last several years. I think we're in a really good place, and I'm looking forward to hearing what comes next. Back to you, Alex.
Thank you. So we're about to get ready with the big part of the show, but before I introduce our next presenter, I do want to say, for those of you who are watching, there's going to be a portion of this that is going to be open to you, the WSU Wichita State community, and you have the ability to type in questions and comments as we go, and with time at the end, we're going to get to them. So please don't be shy. Fill up the chat box, blow it up. Next is the head of this whole strategic planning business, who's really led us through the whole process over these last 2 years and wants to give us all the information and goodies. So I will turn it over to the wonderful K. Monk Morgan.
Yay, me. Wonderful. That's awesome. Thank you, Alex. Don't know how wonderful, but I'm certainly grateful to have had the opportunity to work with so many university and community members on helping to derive our plan. The refresh has been a long effort, but I think we're all really proud of where we are at this point. And it makes me feel good to hear our top leadership talk about exactly how they see the plan and their appreciation for the work that so many have done over the last 2 years. And so I'm going to walk our community through the next 20 minutes or so, where we started, where we are today, and to the degree I can, where we're heading, and share how this is a linchpin and a launch pad for our future success. And so thanking Levi in advance for being the most awesome human clicker ever. Let's go, Levi. So in 2018, 2019, over that academic year, some of you that have been at Wichita State for a while will know that Cindy Claycomb was leading our strategic planning effort and did so since 2013. She and I experienced a leadership handoff, and we began the work on refreshing our strategic plan and really working to bring the campus community back together to make sure that we continue to be on the same path and to reinvigorate one another around the plans that we had in place. We did a lot of work with, as Dr. Golden said, shared governance. Our friends in HR did a series of shared governance forums. We held several circles with the Shocker Circle Keepers in order to gather information and insights. We set up 7 different activation teams. Many of you I know participated in an activation team around one of the 7 goals, where we had an opportunity to talk about the progress that had been made on each one of those 7 goals, whether that was still work that we wanted to continue to do and to do it in the way we had. And we did all of that with a revised committee structure. So we spent a lot of time in 2018 and 2019 in discovery, engaging, and refreshing our plan, and came back to the campus community in September of last year to say these are the new 5 goals. And so Levi, if you'd advance. So awesome. The results of our 2018-2019 work stand before you. This is where we left off in September of last year. It seems like a really long time ago now in COVID time, but we ended up having not made any modifications to either our vision statement or our mission statement. And that was really intentional. Those of you that have been along this journey for a while, you know that part of the discussion was how far do we go in a planning process, especially when we anticipated new leadership. And so the committee at the time determined that it was best for us to focus specifically on the goals. And we did so. And the decision was made between the committee and the campus community that rather than have 7 goals, that we would have 5. We added a goal that spoke specifically to student-centeredness and making sure that we were promoting a holistic student success experience that seemed to align well with our new leader. But we did that in an effort to categorize work in a way that elevated students and the experience that students were having. And so at the end of 2019, We had 5 goals. We'd left our vision and mission untouched. Advance, please, Levi. In 2019-2020, our work has really been on activating and measuring that goal. We refreshed, we engaged, we got lots of people engaged in the process, almost 300 individuals from campus, innovation campus, and even community partners were engaged in that process. And then we decided it was time then to activate, kind of live in and implement those 5 goals, and then measure, which is not something that we've done in a significant effort before. One of the big pieces that we were able to accomplish over the 19-20 year was working with our technology services office, helped create a team dynamics tool by which we could democratize the plan, in the sense that community members from all over the university had an opportunity to identify the work that they were doing. We started out by saying, these are the 3 mission targets. We'd identified the 5 goals. There were 16 strategies that were identified as things we wanted to measure or capture activities related to those 16 things. We created a set of objectives so that we could actually measure, and then our key performance indicators. And we were intentional with the Strategic Planning Committee in using key performance indicators that were things that we care about here at the university, things that our Kansas Board of Regents leadership is really interested in, and to the degree appropriate, things that we might need to capture for our Higher Learning Commission accreditation. We were really fortunate that along the same time, Dr. Golden came in and had some clear things that he too wanted to measure. And so we were able to bring all those things together so that we didn't have 65 different things we were measuring. We were just measuring the ones that we found to be most important. And then we revised the vision statement. I made mention that in the 18-19 academic year, the determination was made that we would leave that until new leadership arrived. In 19, we all know that new leadership arrived, and we started to work on revisioning our vision statement and completed that work. Levi? The end of 2019-2020, our new vision statement, to be one of America's most innovative research universities, known for its impactful student experience and driving the prosperity of people and communities we serve. Really wanted to make sure that that new vision statement encapsulated the work that Dr. Golden and so many others really see us living into for the next decade. We continued over the year. We collected over 200 different strategic planning initiatives that were submitted from the campus community, everyone from folks in advising to folks in our pre-college programs. Several of our all of our academic units provided all types of intel on the activities that they were doing that moved the university strategic planning forward. Many of you are also aware that President Golden instituted some task force that met at the early spring. That information was helpful, and the Strategic Planning Committee was engaged in that work and helping share information that we'd learned over the last 2 years, and gave them a head start in some cases and helped with that work. There are several new dashboards that were created this year, some specifically for strategic planning. Others have been created to measure other key performance indicators that are meaningful to the campus, or again, one of those outside entities that is interested in our outcomes and the performance of the university. For the first time in a long time, I think we aligned the budget process with strategic planning goals. That was an absolute joy to see, as a person who's worked really hard with so many of you on this plan, to see that the plan is not something that just sits on a shelf, but something that's being utilized to help make decisions on campus and prioritize where spending would happen. And then ultimately, as Provost Muma mentioned, we produced the annual priorities report, and we've now done that for the last 3 years and will continue to do so. It gives opportunities for folks to shine in new ways and for us to elevate and celebrate the work that so many folks are doing in our campus community to move our plan forward. Levi. Drum roll, the priorities for the 19-20 academic year We've met a lot of these, and so I'm really excited to walk through, at least to provide some highlights on progress made. You'll note that the priorities are identified as they relate specifically to any one of the goals. It is important to note that you could have, for example, a financial aid goal that fit under university infrastructure. And so while I have attached them to a specific goal, that doesn't mean that that's the only place where this work was uplifted. But we had priorities in financial aid and financial literacy, culture of trust. Many of you've already, we've heard folks talk about the transparency and shared governance pieces of our work, which is a continuation from work that started in 2018 and even before. And so rather than to read all these to you here, I want to walk you through some of the progress that was made in each one of these areas. I do know that Provost Muma shared in his annual letter to the university, at least to several of the units that report to his office, the annual priorities report. I'll share with you that it's available on the university website. So if you'd like to download a copy for yourself, it's great reading. You'll love it. This information can be found there as well. Levi? Our priority one, of course, is to continue the implementation of the strategic enrollment management plan. Lots of work happened here. Levi, if you advance. Oh, no, you're good. Thank you. One of the primary goals this year was to increase need-based aid, and several folks engaged in the work, both in the academic colleges. Certainly a shout out to our friends in University Foundation and our colleagues in the Office of Financial Aid, who not only increased the revenue available to provide need-based scholarship and aid over the year, but actually distributed that. It's one thing to earn it or go out and raise it, but we also have to figure out ways to get those funds out to students. And so we were able to successfully increase the financial aid that was provided to students based particularly on need. This has been a goal of the provost and the Office of Academic Affairs for a while. A total of $9,620,272 was raised for endowed chairs and professorships. Another almost $14.5 million was raised for faculty fellows, staff development, and coaches support. So lots of efforts going into closing out our annual campaigns or our capital campaigns, all types of campaigns, raising funds and ultimately impacting positively our student body. Levi? Financial literacy. I will share with you that many of these outcomes we were able to identify because folks reported them in Team Dynamics and the Strategic Planning Initiative tool. Several of our pre-college programs reported having financial literacy programs that impacted students before they even got to the university. Our Office of Financial Aid, of course, continues to educate students on financial obligations and money management. And this year, the Office of Student Money Management created and designed, in working with the Office of Career Services, an online money management course that students are available to access through Blackboard. And so the entire pipeline of the students that we aim to serve are being educated around financial literacy. And I think that speaks volumes to the importance of this particular goal and priority and the seriousness in which our campus community adopted this particular strategy. Next slide. Several new degrees were identified and made it through the KBOR exception process. And so we're excited that we have a new business analytics degree and a data science major, mathematical foundations of data analysis, and then applied linguistics. And so we continue to want to modify our academic curriculum and our offerings such that students are not only prepared for the jobs of today, but they are adequately prepared for jobs that are coming forth in the future, 5 to 6 years from now. Jobs that aren't even created yet, our kids will be ready for. So excited about that. Next slide. Health and wellness. We're all familiar with and probably see when we come to campus our new Steve Clark YMCA and our WSU Student Wellness Center. We were able to successfully increase the number of students who had access to these services through this facility You will note that this academic year was certainly impacted by COVID. And so both our health and wellness and our mental health and our physical health were impacted by the number of students that they could serve and the way in which they had to pivot to provide those services. And so certainly want to acknowledge the great efforts of that team for continuing to provide research service or outreach services to our students. So we were able to make significant progress in that area as well. Next slide. Priority 2, faculty and staff. The goal is to continue advancing a culture of trust and integrity where faculty and staff are engaged, kept well informed by the administration, and respected as important stakeholders in decisions that affect their work. Made significant progress in this area as well. Levi, will you advance? One of the number one goal was to complete the evaluation and refresh of the strategic plan. And I can tell you that that is done. There is a handy dandy new website. There are documents on the strategic planning website that you can download. Several documents were emailed out to the campus community that are printable so that students and faculty and staff all have access to the plan in its written form. And I would encourage you to take advantage of those printables and to utilize those in your own offices because it's done and we're excited about that. Next slide. Faculty workload. Alex and his colleagues worked diligently over the last several years, bringing to conclusion a faculty workload policy. That information is available if you're not aware on the Faculty Senate websites. You can find this is just a cut and paste of the actual motion approved by the Faculty Senate in October of 2019. This particular policy talks about student-centered work, disciplinary and professional centered work, as well as community centered work. So very proud of our colleagues in Faculty Senate for moving this work forward in a way to be supportive of our faculty and staff and ultimately benefiting our students. Next slide. Market-based compensation. Our colleagues over in the Office of HR and in other places have been working diligently to align our pay structures using any number of different tools that are available to them. Some of you may be currently involved in market-based compensation evaluations and getting things lined up. We are hopeful that within the next year, we will have an opportunity to support the completion of this particular project. And so while it is not complete, several steps have been marked off and we're making adequate, well, I would say even better than adequate progress towards the goal of having this particular objective being met. Next slide. Priority 3 addresses university infrastructure. Creating and implementing a plan for improving information technology services based on growth and transformation. Done a lot of work in this space and so excited to share, and some of us are living the fruits of this labor even to be able to engage in this particular arena. We couldn't, I don't know that we could have done this a year ago, and so that's proof is in the pudding there. Levi, will you advance? Work to improve the Wi-Fi coverage on educational buildings. And so it's been reported that work with academic affairs was done to prioritize the buildings that were most in need. We're in the process of deploying that needed equipment so that we can strengthen our bandwidth in order to meet this particular goal. Next slide. Better leverage the use of Highland Receptive content. This gets real specific here, but this is what happens when you're making goals. And so the elimination of paper documents and storage, facilitating the remote work during COVID, implementation of Slate, which is a system that's being used, customer relation management system for the admissions processes on campus. And ultimately providing a more modern look and feel to our admissions interactions with potential students at all levels and across all admissions platforms. And so while not sexy necessarily, these are the types of things that are important to make sure that our institution runs and runs effectively. We're able to recruit and retain and graduate our students in a timely manner. And so certainly appreciative of the efforts of our ITS unit. Next slide. Facilities master plan. Many of you have probably had an opportunity to engage with Emily and her team. We have found funding and authorization has been provided to begin phase 1 of a campus master planning process just this last August. She is in the process of creating a task force, which will meet over the fall to undergo the work of creating the master plan, and then ultimately hoping to conclude that work yet this semester. So making progress in that area as well. Next slide. Priority 4, research and economic development, continue to grow funded university research and applied learning opportunities in partnership with our academic units, departments, industry, and government. Next slide. Research continues to grow. Every year, we continue to be able to boast a record year. This year, we were over $160 million in 2020 in research funding. We were able to take some of those funds and make sure that we allocated summer research support for our students, $150,000 of that. Additional funding was made available for doctoral level research stipends, just to make sure that we were competitive with our peers. And most of you are aware that we launched the President's Convergent Science Initiative. And that funding will be over 4 years, over $1.2 million. And so very excited about these new initiatives and increasing the portfolio of research and scientific inquiry and creativity that's happening on our campus. So excited about progress made there. We did a lot of good things over the last year, y'all. I hope folks are recognizing that. Levi, next slide. Yes, continue to spur innovation across the campus. We know that we have an awesome, relatively new innovation campus, but we wanted to recognize and ensure that innovation is happening across the spectrum of academic programs on our campus. Several new things have happened. The Office of Tech Transfer and Commercialization was stood up over the last year. The Gateway to IP program was created. We have several guests that came to our campus to inspire additional innovation and to educate around how we can meet the goals that were set. New innovation awards were created, and new folks were honored for their work in those spaces. And of course, 2 new organizations were created. The Office of Research Administration, or reorganizations rather, moved to Academic Affairs, as did Innovation and New Ventures has become now the College of Innovation and Design. And so continuing to evolve in the area of innovation on our campus, and excited and enthused about that work as well. Next slide. Continuing to increase philanthropic support. I shared the work in this space a little bit around financial aid, but I think it's important to understand and underscore what it takes in order to bring to conclusion the Shock the World campaign. So many folks worked hard to ensure that we'd be able to meet these goals. And so I don't feel like we could talk enough about this particular effort, because these efforts fuel so many. And if indeed we did not have the funding from people, places, and programs, then much of the rest of this report would be mute, and we would only be here about 10 minutes instead of an hour. So excited and certainly want to uplift and highlight the efforts in the fundraising spectrum. Next slide. Our last priority, priority 5, was community engagement. Next slide. Placemaking. Some of us are more familiar with the placemaking initiatives that have been held on campus than others, but certainly want to give homage to and acknowledge, again, these things were submitted through the strategic planning initiative process through Team Dynamics. We have a new hammock lounge on campus where students are able to, students and anybody else. I've spent some time in a hammock. I'd encourage you to do so too. Creative crosswalks. If you've gone over to Barton, you have an opportunity to see some of the embellishments, the enhancements to that particular space, making sure that not only do our students and our community partners feel comfortable on our campus proper, but that our greater community feel good here too. And so thanks to Kristen Beal and so many folks in her area and others who have led this particular effort. Even our community garden. I don't know if you guys have gone over and taken a look at the community garden, but I would encourage you to. Lots of great things happened in this space over the last year. Next slide. Continue to commit WSU's talented folks to the improvement of the entire community and serving. This is a list provided by a couple of different offices on campus of the areas and the partnerships that are specifically focused on helping to mediate economic, education, and health disparities in our communities. And so excited about being able to report out and to share some of the partnerships that our university has engaged in, and how we're making an effort, not just in the education of our students, not just in making sure that our faculty and staff have meaningful work, but the impact that we have outside of Wichita State into the broader campus or the broader Wichita-Sedgwick County community. And so wanted to share that with you all as well. Next slide. Student programming did a lot of work in this space. These data were provided to us by the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, just highlighting, frankly, the number of celebrations, the number of students that are being served, and making sure that, again, the democratization of our strategic plan allows us to celebrate lots of different wins from lots of different offices and different spaces that are doing work that advantages and provides momentum for our plan. And so excited about what students received as a part of building our community and community ties here on campus. Next slide. What's next? Some could say we've done it all already. I would imagine the provost and president will disagree. So the work for 20 and 21 really is to integrate these plans, align other planning that's happening on campus, and continue to share information about the work that's taking place. Next slide. We have bought into the notion of aligning all of our academic plans or all of our university plans so that the lead document, our North Star and the constellation, if you will, is our strategic plan, our mission, our values, our mission, values, vision, and those goals. And so now the work continues in that we are working with each unit, academic and otherwise, that have plans to ensure that those plans align and that we're all moving, as Provost says, we're rowing the boat in the same direction. And so we're all in the boat. Now we're all got to start rowing, and excited about that alignment piece. In this area, we have put together, we have an integrated planning group that meets, that talks about both the budget, the diversity plan, our university communications plan, our technology plan, our master's facilities plan, talent development plan, campaign plan, athletics plan, student affairs plan, alumni plan. Get it? Lots of plans. The provost said he likes plans, and we got plans. We want to align those, not so we just have plans, but that we have demonstrated evidence that we have the plan, we're working the plan, we're evaluating that work, and then we're making recommendations and changes based on that information. So this year's work is all about alignment and sharing out of those results. Next slide. To that end, we are updating our committee structure. You will know that over the last 2 years, we've had a committee structure that was made up primarily of activation team leaders. There were 14 who served diligently in gathering information and being representative of the greater campus community, including our innovation campus partners. And then we had what we call cross-cutting initiatives, folks who represented offices that do the work that we thought would be helpful in helping us create structure and implementation plans around the actual strategic plan, those 5 goals. At this point, we have that work has concluded. We're excited about, we've got a pretty little packet, we can hand it to you. Now it's about monitoring and alignment. And so the plan is to modify the committee structure for the university strategic plan to align with those that are currently responsible for the oversight of a plan in their area. And so you will see that student affairs, human resources, technology services, strategic communications, finance and administration, facilities, strategic enrollment management, the alumni and foundation are all represented on the updated and new structure, the new committee. We've added the academic component to reflect those folks that are currently serving on the Academic Program Review Committee. Those of you that are familiar with Academic Program Review, we do that every year for a different set of programs. That effort is run out of the provost office and includes the faculty senate chair, chair-elect, past chair, and a dean who is representative of the provost. And so that is the group that will, over the next year, monitor our progress on the plan and monitor one another's progress on their individual plans to ensure that we've got enough permeation of both the language and the work such that we're making adequate progress across the entire spectrum. Next slide. These are our priorities for 2021. Much of the same type of work. We want to make sure that we're connecting students. Dr. Golden will talk a little bit more as time grows more near to the installation around opportunities for additional aid for students and programming. We want to continue to have our students involved with research and paid opportunities based on grants and internships. Applied learning continues to be at the forefront of our work. We want to continue to lead in digital transformation. We want to seek acknowledgement of and build our reputation and space for research and scholarship. So you'll see across the board, nothing that I think is radical. Many of these things we've already begun the work in these areas. This is just the year we're going to focus on these and be able to capture. This is what we will report out next year. Next slide, last slide. If you want to remain engaged, which I hope you do, the request is that you go to the strategic planning website and you continue to report your strategic planning initiatives. And then I would lastly close out by inviting you to attend a watch party for President Golden's installation to learn more about those priorities that have been set for the 2021 year and beyond. And so with that, I thank you, and I'll turn it back over to Alex.
Thank you so much, Kay. So clearly, no one's bored around here. We're all doing stuff. And the thing that I'm most excited about in all 32 of those slides is I'm hearing Wi-Fi is going to get improved. So that's what I'm holding on for. Next up, I see a couple of things happening in the comments that I wanted to just really quickly. I think we got the links up for those pages. I would also just throw in a plug for wichita.edu/faculty senate. That will take you to some of the minutes and agenda items that are happening there. One of the big priorities of the university, as you know, is not only what we're doing on our campus, but how what we do on our campus radiates out to our community. So I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy Hill, who's the director for Center for Economic Development and Business Research, to talk a little bit about how the WSU campus is impacting the economy of Kansas at large. So Jeremy, take it away.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I'm very excited to share the first ever economic impact of the university. And I will say I came here in 2009. And when I first did, the very first day, I said we should do an impact study and just didn't have a lot of interest. And it really took 10 years. And Kay actually coming to us saying, well, this is what your center does. Can you do it for the university? And I was thrilled. So Kay, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for using internal resources for something that we could have gone out to a consultant. I really appreciate it and had a lot of fun over the last year trying to figure out and understand how we are connected to the economy as a university. And I will say this is the first brush at doing this. We'll have to come back year after year, and I hope a lot of people on this call will also help me gather more information, find other ways that we're interconnected to it. Now, the way we looked at this economic contributions to the overall economy, we used the but-for statement. But for the university, would it exist? So we have the university budget, but outside of the university budget, we have athletics. So but for the university, it would not exist. Same thing with foundation, same with students just spending in the economy. So when you use that assumption, we went and tried to get all those things together. Now, when you look at the impact of the university, you look at our budget, and you add in some of the other ones, you get a direct impact of just $500 million. That's under this direct side. And of that is a spending. Now, some of that spending, if you go to a college, they're spending for name tags for an event or a consultant locally to help out with some research or some projects they're working out. All that spending goes and supports another business in the economy. That's where we capture this in the indirect side, $233 million in the Kansas economy. Now, also part of that $494 million, we have a lot of salaries. And as people live and engage in this community, they help develop the cultural amenities and a lot of this richness that we have of our economy by spending at restaurants and going to bars and things like that. And that is really captured over in this induced effect of 264. When you pull all this together, that comes up to a total impact to the Kansas economy of just shy of $1 billion. So, I mean, how do you really look at this? So you go half a billion to almost 1 billion. And that gets to your first multiplier, right? And you see that for every dollar we have at the university, there's almost another dollar circulating around the economy that was generated because the university was here, right? That's a multiplier of 2. And when you can look at this compared to other industries, most of them are around 1.1 or 1.2. When you get up to the 2 range, it's very few, and aerospace is one of them that's just a little bit above 2. So we are an economic driver to the economy. Oh, I want to say one more thing. Another way to think about this is $1 billion. What's the size of the Wichita area economy? It's $36.6 billion. So out of the $36 running around the economy, 1 billion, or one of the dollars, is associated with directly or indirectly or induced from the university itself. So 1 out of $36. Now, Wichita State is a business innovation center, and we can kind of just gloss over this because I think we all understand it, but we compared this to all of our peer institutions or aspirant institutions and their Kansas research universities. And we looked at business research, it's 54% here. All of them, the highest it was 5% or less. So we're over 10 times more concentrated in this business research than any other ones. And then when you look at overall research, 71% was aerospace. And when you look at the share of aerospace of any other university at all, through the IPEDS data, we're the largest one. Now that really undermines the fabric of how we're interconnected. And I won't have time to go into the economies of agglomeration and how one emerged and they're interconnected to the other, but you should really come away saying, unlike other universities, we are highly connected to the overall fabric of how the economy runs and moves forward. Now, Wichita State is a pipeline for talent. We all know we're here to produce students. They go out. I don't have a lot of time to go over all the details, but out of that production of students, there's a few things that we really should think about. One, we know that we have this high concentration of students that are 25 and older, but when we compare that to our peer group and our aspirant group, and we look at their communities around them, we actually have a higher share. We actually don't have a high concentration of that 25 and older, but that is a big percent of our students that go through this university. That means they're here for a reason. They're coming to this university to improve their education, human capital, and be highly interconnected to the business community. It's a direct effect back to the community. Another one that is very interesting when you look at the growth in female undergraduate students, it gives them access to capital and the shift in this labor market and how we're utilizing that, particularly Wichita, because we have some structural issues with aerospace and changing of jobs. We're filling a need, and we're actually, as a university, supplying that labor to fill some of that need within this market, kind of making it a little bit smoother. A third one is diversity. Now, if we look at just total numbers or even shares, we don't really come up very high. So when I compared to our peer and aspirants in Kansas universities, I did it based on a 30-mile radius. and said, how diverse are you compared to your community? And when you do it that way, we come up to the top few out of the 8 or so universities we compare to. We were pretty high compared to our community amount of students. So, I mean, there's initial work here, a lot more to do to show that there's some opportunities for people in our community to get through the university and get that opportunity to improve human capital. Now, we did a unique study, and we looked at all graduates over the last 50 some years. And what we did is we looked at the last degree conferred, we figured out where they moved. We had their earnings grow as they got older, right? We even had some people die off in there. And we showed where they moved and the value they contributed to the economy. Now, I'm not showing the Kansas one, but Kansas represents about 51% of the overall production of talent. Most of that's in the South Central, but there's a lot in Kansas City and so forth. But when you look across the nation, when we were urban serving, we're actually producing labor, a pipeline that goes across the whole nation. About 41% of the earnings annually is actually generated in other states. So we're really a pipeline somewhere else too, much different than what I had anticipated. So Wichita Shockers are generating jobs across the state. Yeah, we have a lot of people who are working at the university and generating other jobs through other businesses associated in Sedgwick County. We have some in the 10-county area defined by the region. And then you look across the state, we actually have 90 people, Shockers, who are working at the university that are either in Kansas City, Topeka, or even small towns all across the state where we have access to this great talent, but they're actually somewhere else. That also means our multiplier is really large in the rest of the state. That's because we have all these interconnections as a university now that are being developed as we looked at this over time, even increasing in Topeka and Kansas City and rural Kansas. So I'm really excited to watch this as we look further and seeing how we went from just urban serving to really broadening our definition and how we're interconnected to the economy. So I actually came in 2009, and the growth of the university is unique. We are growing, and if we look at this, the other universities, most of them were not growing nearly as fast. A lot of them were declining. And now we actually discounted a few things. Although we added WSU Tech, that wasn't included in here. And the partnerships weren't included in here, right? This is just our core nucleus of what the university is. It continued to grow over this time period. So I think that's something that's unique, particularly when you think about the growth of our regional economy, right? Unlike all the other universities and the communities they were in, we had the slowest growing economy, but we had one of the fastest growing universities, which is really changing and shifting the direction as becoming a generator of economic growth for the regional economy. Now this one, I actually Shockers are a provider of cultural amenities, but really we are not, I don't have all those elements in here. So I'm just gonna limit this down to, we're supporting a tourism economy, right? I took the 4 easiest ways of measuring all the interactions that we do with bringing students and parents and coming to this economy and looked at their spending. However, in the future, we really need to understand that cultural amenities, because we have an art museum and we have performing arts. And if we really get down into all the academic colleges, there's all kinds of stuff that we're bringing people onto campus and providing all kinds of new ways of engaging literature and knowledge that is not really captured in this study, but in this part of the study, but we have value. Now, one thing, this report that we created is over 100 pages. We have it stackable so we can go through and break out different components of the university. So if you do have an interest of one side of the university, it's actually broken out. It's done such a way that we can go and look at that impact almost separately and look at the value it's contributing to the economy. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeremy. I appreciate it. We have 12-ish minutes left, and there are a couple of questions that have come through the chat. As you know me, I have some questions. I'm just curious, so I want to learn some things. But there was one that came through the chat from Jay Price. I think it's a good question. So, Kay, this is specifically for you. Our mission and vision. How does our mission and vision and approach differ from those of our peer institutions? What do we do that's different, and what do they do, and vice versa?
Yeah, I think that's an awesome question. Leave it to a history professor to ask one right off the bat. I think if you were to do as our strategic planning committee did and review several different mission and vision statements, you will find that the language for most institutions is very similar. What difference is our approach? And this is one of the things that you'll hear Provost Muma and even Dr. Golden talk about a lot. It's location, location, location. That we are an urban serving research institution that is in partnership with our community, not just in meeting the educational needs, but helping to meet all types of needs. I think is the approach piece that is different from some other institutions, particularly some of the institutions that are in our state, and even some of our peer institutions. And so I don't know that if we were wordsmithing, we would find a whole lot of difference in what people say they're going to do. But what we say and why we say it is where I think the difference is. We really are fully trying to connect with, lead, live into the mission of leading in both education, economics, and culture.
Yeah, great. Another question that came from the chat, and I think is a good one to sort of highlight. Sometimes we want to think about the language, right? And so there was a question about, and I want to make sure I've got it because I promise. Oh, how do we define or measure what impactful is?
I'll jump in on this one if you can hear me.
Take it, Jay.
So let me just jump back to Kay's recent response, which was spot on. My only difference is we're an urban-based research institution. And by that, I think we're all cognizant of the fact that it doesn't take very long for us to get outside of Wichita to understand it's not necessarily urban, and that we are basically serving, as Kay indicated, a number of counties of South Central Kansas, not all urban. So while we are urban-based, we have a broad focus and mission. And that's somewhat how we define how we measure impactful. We measure impactful by how we graduate our students on a time that's based on their expectations. We are a bit different than all universities. I push back on a cookie cutter approach because we have clearly some students that are going to work full time while they go to school, and 4 years may not be the most appropriate graduation rate, but we want to graduate students at the appropriate time. And if we can do that, that's impactful. If we can prepare them for the jobs now and of the future so that they have the economic mobility as they graduate and spend their lives with their families, that's impactful. If we can quantify, which we work on and will be doing, the type of economic growth and diversification of our economy, that's impactful. If we can make headway into the large number of families of our K through 12 students that are below the poverty line, that's impactful. So all those things, as we kind of put this tapestry together, frame how we discuss and how we describe being impactful for our region and for our institution.
Thank you. I think that's a great answer, and happy to see some dog yoga happening in the background. I think it's good.
Yeah, I apologize.
I'll do my stretching. It's a good reminder. Another question that came through the chat, and we're celebrating 125 years as a institution this year, and one of the things that is most notable is the physical change that has taken place over our 125 years. And the most recent physical change is Innovation Campus, both physical and in a lot of ways curricular as well. So a question that came in through the comments, which is, how does the growth of WSU's Innovation Campus compare to other universities with an Innovation Campus? And I'll throw that out to anyone who wants to try to wrestle with that one.
Well, I'll start it and I'll gladly hand over to anybody. So having come from North Carolina, where Centennial Campus, kind of the gold standard, if you will, of research or innovation campuses is established, and also from Arizona, where you had the IBM campus for the University of Arizona Tucson, the ascent and the growth of our innovation campus is probably unparalleled. It took NC State 30 years to get Centennial Campus to a point of where it is established similar to where we are at. this last couple of weeks, we saw the announcements of Deloitte and the Smart Factory. We're going to have more announcements of global and multinational US-based companies locating on our campus, engaging with our students, engaging with our faculty, and having a physical presence will be made over the next 6 months or so. So I think our growth, our ascent, and our impact is really unprecedented. Where we are working on and where the provost is taking the leadership is to make sure that the Innovation Campus is a branding name to help draw organizations. Innovation clearly takes part across our campus, across our university, including WSU Tech, where we are going to continue to work on, as part of our strategic priorities, just ensuring that we have even further engagement of our faculty and academic programs. Will be groundbreaking Woolsey Hall in the Barton School of Business here at the end of October. We're going to put the National Institute for Digital Transformation, which will be a faculty-led initiative, over on the Innovation Campus. So we still have work to do in regard to having more of our academic programs, our scholarship, and our student engagement throughout the campus, and specifically on the Innovation Campus.
Great, thank you. So for those of you who are viewing, if you've got questions, you can put them in the chat and I'll make sure to get to them, but I came preloaded with a few of my own. So this one's for you, Kay. As you sort of saw us through the refresh of the strategic plan, and wasn't a refresh, or it wasn't a change, it was just an update, but I think people have sort of wondered, did this refresh change any of the ways in which our university operates and how we're moving forward?
I'd like to think so. We were challenged at the time by the provost to be intentional about whether or not we would be able to measure things and to have evidence. And he shared that he likes a plan, and as much as he likes plans, he likes numbers too, as do I. And so we're able to see now that, to Jeremy's point and his participation today, that we have an economic impact study. If we want to say we're the economic impact driver for the region and beyond, do we have evidence of that? And so we're working in that space. This year's annual budget process, in order to make a request for additional funding or new funding, you needed to tie it to the strategic planning process. And so folks had to then at least know that we had a strategic plan and what the strategic plan said. I think the other thing that has just been pervasive is that people are engaged in the process and aware. You can't have, I don't believe that you can have a robust shared governance if people don't understand the governing documents and haven't not only bought into those, but helped create them. And I think we went about this work in a way where people subscribe to it's our plan. And so I think that's the most substantial change.
Yeah, thank you. I want to be cognizant of time, so I want to make sure, again, if there was one question, by the way, Jeremy, is your report available somewhere online that we could find it if we wanted to view it later?
That is a great question. I will say I gave the initial release to the president just a few weeks ago. And since we're getting ready for the Economic Outlook Conference, I haven't been able to work with the university to get it posted on our overall university website. So that is the next step. But the report is about 100 pages long, so it's a little long to lots of details and numbers. You want numbers? There are plenty of numbers
not
there.
A problem.
I just
well,
don't
we'll get
have
it out
available
to the community
for you.
as soon as we can. So I'm going to actually just finish up with my last question, and then we'll wrap things up. So lots of things happened last year, but one of the things I think was sort of most noticeable to me, but also sort of flew under the radar, is that our vision actually changed. And so I was wondering, what does that change of vision mean for our campus? And again, I'll open it up to anyone who's not me to answer that.
I'll start, but I think lots of other folks have opinions. I think that the Strategic Planning Committee felt like the vision statement that we had around applied learning did a great job of getting us started on a trajectory where we were thinking much more externally and aligned with, as Jay said, a urban-based institution that's serving lots of different spaces. Applied learning is a part of the ethos of our campus at this point. It's not something that will probably ever go away, and certainly not in the short times that the rest of us will be here. And so it was time to look at something that was much broader, that took us beyond that one piece, and figure out how we could engage a greater campus ethos around service. And we had a leader who came in who had a vision. We held off intentionally in making modifications in that space, so that we could provide voice for leadership. And so I think in that space, or at least in that area, that was the take of the Strategic Planning Committee. And I'd ask Provost and the President to chime in as well.
I'll just say that if anybody's worried about the loss of the words of applied learning, it's now embedded across everything that we do. And it's in all of our strategies now for the strategic plan. If you go and look at Wichita EDE/strategy, you'll be able to see that there. And we can't just hang on to words for everything that we do at the university, because, we do learning at the university. I think that's understood. And I think it's understood as an urban public research university that our work is applied. So as Kay said, moving on beyond that is important.
All right. Well, we have come to 2 o'clock, and if anything, I am punctual. So I want to thank President Golden, Provost Muma, AVP Monk Morgan, Professor Hill, everyone, for your time. For those of you who are watching, thank you. If you have questions that didn't get answered, please feel free to shoot them Kay's way. I'm going to just direct them to you, Kay. And she has all the answers. I will tell you, in my household, I can't say strategic planning anymore without my wife punching me in the arm. It's become a drinking game. So I think this is exciting. It's exciting to see that the university is continuing to make progress and move in a way that is thoughtful and calculated. So thank you for all the work that your teams are doing, and to all the faculty and staff who have been involved in every aspect of this. So with that, I will sign off and say, have a great week, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.
Thanks for your leadership, Alex.
All right.